I had suspected for weeks, but nothing could have prepared me for that moment. It was a late Thursday night when I parked the car in our driveway, the house too quiet for the hour. My shift had ended early, and I hadn't told Emma, my wife, I'd be coming home. Maybe I should have. Maybe it would have saved me from what I saw. The door creaked as I stepped into the living room. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was unusual, Emma never left her phone behind. Curious, I glanced at the screen. A notification from Ryan. A text preview glared back at me, "Had the best time with you tonight, babe. Can't wait for more." My chest tightened, rage simmering beneath the surface. I unlocked her phone, her passcode had never changed. The messages were explicit, dripping with affection and secrecy. "Miss you already. He's clueless. You're all mine tonight." I couldn't breathe. It felt like my world had imploded. My hands trembled, but I kept scrolling. There were photos. Of them. Together. In my house. In my bed. The bed I paid for, where we had once laughed, loved, and shared dreams. I dropped the phone and walked down the hallway, my steps slow, deliberate. The bedroom door was ajar. Inside, the lamp cast a warm glow over the scene that would haunt me forever. There they were, Emma sprawled across Ryan's chest, her golden hair a tangled mess against his skin. Both asleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing outside their little bubble. I couldn't hold back the fury. My hand reached instinctively to my bedside table, where I kept my gun. Quietly, I clicked off the safety. My heart was pounding, my head buzzing with thoughts of betrayal and revenge. I kicked the side of the bed hard. Ryan shot up, wide-eyed, scrambling like a startled animal. Before he could react, my fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling back onto the mattress. Emma screamed, clutching the sheets to cover herself. "Shut up," I growled, cutting her off mid-wail. "Both of you have 5 minutes to get the hell out of my house, or I swear to God, I'll make you regret staying a second longer." Emma's voice cracked. "Wait, Jake. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like." I laughed bitterly. "You think I'm an idiot? Get out. Now." Ryan was on his feet, stammering apologies, his lip bleeding. "Man, I didn't know she was married." My glare silenced him. "Spare me your bull *********. Get dressed, or I'll make you regret it." They scrambled to comply, their panic almost comical if not for the boiling anger in my chest. Emma tried to speak again as she threw on her clothes. "Jake, please. Let me explain." "Explain?" I snapped, stepping closer. "Explain how you betrayed me in my own home? Or how you let him touch you in the bed we share? Save it, Emma. I don't need to hear your lies." Minutes later, they were gone, the slam of the door echoing through the silence. I stood in the empty bedroom, staring at the disheveled sheets. My head spun, my emotions teetering between rage, despair, and the dull ache of betrayal. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was in the lies, the deceit, the way she had smiled at me that morning like nothing was wrong. My trust, my love, everything I had built with Emma, was crumbling before my eyes. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands. The gravity of it all hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just a bad dream, it was my reality now. The woman I had trusted more than anyone had ripped my world apart, and I didn't know if I could ever piece it back together. The house was suffocatingly quiet after Emma and Ryan left, but my mind roared with 1,000 questions. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? Was I some kind of laughingstock while she played me for a fool? I went to the living room, grabbed her phone off the coffee table, and scrolled through the messages again. Each word was like a dagger, twisting in my gut. Ryan wasn't just some random guy. He was someone I knew, a coworker of her father's. Suddenly, all the little comments Emma's father, Harold, had made about Ryan's potential felt like cruel jokes I hadn't been in on. I needed air. My chest felt like it might burst. Grabbing my jacket, I stepped out into the cold night, pacing on the driveway. The thought of Harold knowing, encouraging this, sent a fresh wave of rage through me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Jake? Emma's name lit up the screen. I answered, my voice cold. What do you want? Can we talk? Please, just talk. Her tone was soft, almost pleading, but I wasn't buying it. You've got 3 seconds to say something that won't make me hang up. Jake, she started, her voice trembling. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love you. Please, come to Dad's house so we can talk about this calmly. Her father's house? The nerve of her, running to her daddy after wrecking our marriage. My jaw clenched, but curiosity won out. Fine, I said, gripping the steering wheel as I got in the car. But you better have a damn good explanation. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to Harold's sprawling estate. Lights glowed from the windows, and I could make out Emma's silhouette through the curtains. My hands were trembling as I rang the doorbell, half expecting her to answer with more excuses or crocodile tears. The door opened, and Harold stood there, a smug look on his face that made my blood boil. Jake, he said smoothly, stepping aside to let me in. Where is she? I snapped, brushing past him. In the living room, he said, following me. But before you talk to her, we need to discuss your behavior. I stopped mid-stride, turning to glare at him. My behavior? Yes, Harold said, his voice laced with condescension. You assaulted a man tonight, Jake. Ryan is a valued business partner. If you don't apologize to him and my daughter, there will be consequences. I stared at him, stunned. You're defending her? After what she did? Marriage is complicated, he said with a dismissive wave of his hand. Emma told me you've been neglectful, emotionally unavailable. If she sought comfort elsewhere, maybe you should look in the mirror. My vision blurred with rage. You're unbelievable, I hissed. Your daughter's a liar, and you're enabling her. Watch your tone, he warned, stepping closer. You're not the only one who stands to lose something here. Oh, trust me, I spat, I've already lost enough. I pushed past him into the living room, where Emma sat curled on the couch, her eyes red and puffy. She looked up at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine regret. Jake, she started, standing. Don't, I said, holding up a hand. Just answer one question, why? Her bottom lip quivered. I don't know, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt you. I felt lonely. You've been so busy with work, and I. Stop, I cut her off. Don't you dare blame this on me. I've worked my ass off to give us a good life. You want to talk about neglect? How about the nights I came home to you too tired to even have a conversation, but clearly not too tired to entertain him? Tears streamed down her face, but I felt no pity. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. It just did. It just did, I echoed bitterly. And your dad knew. Hell, he probably introduced you too. Emma looked away, guilt written all over her face. Jake, please. I'll do anything to make this right. Oh, now you care about making things right? I asked, my voice rising. What about all those nights you snuck around behind my back? The lies? The betrayal? Her silence spoke louder than any excuse she could have made. Before I could unleash the full force of my anger, Harold walked in, holding a tumbler of whiskey. That's enough, Jake, he said, his tone firm. You're not going to yell at my daughter in my house. Your house? I laughed bitterly. She's all yours now, Harold. Both of you deserve each other. You're not leaving until you apologize, he said, stepping closer. Or what? I asked, staring him down. You'll call your little lawyer friends? Have me arrested? Go ahead. I'll tell them all about your partner screwing your daughter in my house. Let's see how that plays out for your precious reputation. Harold's face darkened. You've got some nerve, boy. And you're a pathetic excuse for a father, I shot back. If you had any integrity, you'd be ashamed of what you've raised. Emma sobbed behind him, but I didn't care anymore. My love for her, whatever shred of it was left, had burned away in the inferno of betrayal. I turned on my heel and walked out, slamming the door behind me. As I drove home, my phone buzzed again. A message from Emma: Jake, I'm sorry. Let's fix this. Please. But I didn't reply. There was nothing left to fix. The silence of my car was deafening as I pulled into my driveway, headlights slicing through the dark. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house that no longer felt like home. My chest was a knot of rage, confusion, and a strange sense of freedom I couldn't quite explain. When I finally stepped out, the cold night air slapped me back to reality. My phone buzzed again, Emma. This time, it wasn't a plea. It was a long, rambling text filled with half-baked excuses and manipulative words. You've been so distant. I didn't want this to happen, Jake. I need you to see that this isn't just about us, it's about everything. Let's just talk. Please. I tossed the phone onto the counter as soon as I walked inside. I didn't want to read more lies. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a stiff drink, and stared at the empty walls. Emma's betrayal had turned every photo, every memory in this house, into a mockery. That's when I noticed something strange. Her laptop sat open on the dining table, the screen still lit. Emma was usually obsessive about locking it, but tonight, in her rush to leave with Ryan, she must have forgotten. Curiosity clawed at me. My gut told me I'd find more answers there than I'd ever get from her mouth. With a deep breath, I sat down and started digging. The first folder I opened was labeled Work Projects. Harmless enough. Inside, however, were dozens of videos and photos. My stomach churned as I clicked through them. Emma and Ryan, laughing together in hotel rooms, whispering into the camera like giddy teenagers. A few of them were explicit, and I slammed the laptop shut, bile rising in my throat. But one video caught my attention. It wasn't like the others. It was of Emma alone, sitting in our living room. She looked directly into the camera, her expression calm and calculating. If Jake finds out, he'll lose it, she said with a smirk. But honestly, I don't think he has the guts to leave me. He's too proud. Too stuck in this perfect husband act. Besides, even if he does, Dad will make sure I come out on top. I froze, her words playing on a loop in my mind. He doesn't have the guts to leave me. She had underestimated me. The next morning, I woke with a newfound clarity. If Emma thought she could manipulate her way out of this, she was dead wrong. I wasn't going to scream, cry, or beg for answers. I was going to outsmart her. I called my lawyer, James, a no-nonsense guy I trusted implicitly. By noon, we were sitting in his office, and I laid everything out. The texts, the videos, the utter disregard Emma had shown for our marriage. Divorce her, James said bluntly, flipping through the evidence I'd handed him. She's got no leg to stand on here, Jake. You've got grounds for adultery, and if her dad tries to muscle you legally, we'll counter it. He can't protect her from this. That's when I told him the real kicker: the house wasn't just in my name, it had been a gift from my grandfather, and I had the deed to prove it. If Emma thought she could use this place as leverage, she was in for a rude awakening. Good, James said with a nod. This will work in your favor. Keep calm, don't engage with her emotionally, and let me handle the paperwork. I walked out of that office feeling something I hadn't felt in days: control. By the time I got home, Emma was there, waiting for me on the porch. She looked a mess, her hair was unbrushed, and her makeup had smudged from crying. For a brief moment, a pang of guilt struck me, but I quickly shoved it aside. "Jake," she started, stepping toward me, "we need to talk." "No, you need to talk," I said, unlocking the door. "I'm just here to listen to whatever lies you've rehearsed this time." She flinched, following me inside. "I know I messed up," she said, her voice trembling. "But I never stopped loving you. You have to believe that." "Emma," I said, turning to face her, "you don't love me. You love what I provide for you: stability, respect, a life you can flaunt. But love? That's the one thing you don't seem to understand." Her eyes widened. "Jake, that's not fair. I made a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to lock the door, not screwing your dad's business partner," I snapped. "Save the tears, Emma. They don't work on me anymore." Her expression hardened, the fake remorse vanishing in an instant. "Fine," she spat. "If you're so perfect, why don't you tell me what you did wrong? Or are you just going to sit there playing the victim?" I stepped closer, my voice low and even. "You're right. I did do something wrong. I trusted you." For the first time, Emma looked genuinely speechless. "And that's the last mistake I'll ever make with you," I said, walking past her to the bedroom. That night, I sent her an email, formal, detached, and straight to the point. I was filing for divorce. She could keep the car and her personal belongings, but the house? That was mine. Her reply came within minutes, full of threats and vitriol. But I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to James. I woke to the sound of pounding on my door, each knock rattling through the quiet morning like gunfire. Groggy but alert, I grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed and headed for the front door, adrenaline already coursing through me. When I yanked it open, there he was, Harold, Emma's father, flanked by two men in suits who screamed legal trouble. His expression was a mix of fury and smugness, and I knew this wasn't going to be a friendly chat. "Jake," Harold began, stepping forward, "we need to talk." "Do we?" I asked, leaning casually on the bat. "Because I don't recall inviting you over." "Cut the crap," he snapped. "Emma's distraught, and your reckless actions are putting my business and family reputation at risk. I'm here to settle this before it gets worse, for your sake." I let out a cold laugh. "For my sake? Harold, your daughter cheated on me. In my house. With your business partner. I think it's safe to say the damage is already done." Harold's jaw tightened, but one of the suits cleared his throat and handed me a stack of papers. "Mr. Carter," he said, in a tone that oozed practiced civility, "this is a cease and desist order. Any further defamation against Mrs. Carter or Mr. Reynolds will result in legal action." I stared at the papers, then at Harold. "You're joking, right?" "No, Jake," Harold said, his voice icy. "I'm dead serious. You will apologize to Emma and Ryan, publicly and formally, or I'll make sure this divorce leaves you with nothing but your precious pride." I felt my grip tighten on the bat. The audacity was staggering. "You're going to sue me for defamation?" I asked, incredulous. "Harold, your daughter's the one who turned our marriage into a circus, and now you're playing ringmaster. You think I'm scared of your little threats?" "You should be," Harold sneered. "I've already spoken to the HR department at your company. Don't think they'll stand by someone with a pending domestic violence accusation." The words hit me like a slap. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Ryan filed a police report last night," Harold said, smiling like a wolf. "You assaulted him, remember? Breaking his jaw." My lawyers are prepared to use that against you in court. I stepped back, fury boiling over. You're a pathetic excuse for a man, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Using your daughter's infidelity and lies to protect your business? You think you can scare me? I don't care if you drag me to court, Harold. I'll show everyone exactly who you and Emma really are. With that, I slammed the door in his face. My hands were shaking, but I refused to let him see me crack. Inside, my mind raced. Harold wasn't bluffing. If Ryan filed a report, this could spiral out of control quickly. I needed to stay one step ahead, and luckily, I had a card left to play. That afternoon, I met James at his office, showing him the cease and desist and telling him about Harold's threats. He read through the documents with a calm expression, nodding occasionally. They're grasping at straws, James said, finally looking up. If Ryan's report includes exaggerations, we can counter it with evidence. And you have plenty. But what about my job? I asked. If Harold's already getting HR involved. James cut me off with a reassuring hand. Let me handle that. Meanwhile, you should focus on one thing, collecting every shred of evidence you can against Emma and her dad. We'll need it. That night, I went through everything, texts, emails, receipts, anything that painted the real picture of what Emma had done. My heart ached as I pieced together years of betrayal. This wasn't just a fling. There were hints of financial manipulation, using joint accounts for business trips that were clearly nothing of the sort. The more I dug, the angrier I got. But the real shock came when I opened the cloud account we'd shared since our honeymoon. There, hidden in a folder labeled Miscellaneous, was a document that made my blood run cold. It was a contract between Emma and Harold, an agreement stating that if her marriage ended in divorce, she would receive a significant payout from a trust fund. The catch? The payout was contingent on the divorce being labeled irreconcilable differences, and not infidelity. This isn't a marriage, I muttered aloud. It's a damn business transaction. The next morning, I made my move. I called Emma and told her I was ready to talk. She sounded cautious but eager, probably thinking her crocodile tears had worked. We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. She looked polished and put together, but there was a nervous energy about her. Jake, she began, reaching for my hand, thank you for meeting me. I know I've hurt you, but we can fix this. I still love you. I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Cut the act, Emma, I said calmly. I know about the contract. Her face went pale. What contract? The one with your dad, I said, leaning forward. The one that ensures you get a nice payout as long as you make me look like the bad guy. She stammered, her polished facade cracking. It's not what you think. Save it, I said, my voice cold. You underestimated me, Emma. You thought I'd roll over, but you were wrong. This isn't about love or fixing anything. This is about your greed. And now? I'm done playing nice. Her eyes narrowed, the tears disappearing as quickly as they came. You can't prove anything, she hissed. I smiled. You'd be surprised what I can prove. And when this goes to court, everyone will know exactly who you are. For the first time, Emma looked scared. Truly scared. And I reveled in it. 2 days later, I sat at my desk at work, barely keeping up the facade of normalcy. The fallout from Harold's threats lingered in my mind, but I was holding on to my trump card, the evidence I'd collected against Emma and her father. That's when my phone buzzed with a notification from an unfamiliar number. I opened it cautiously, and my heart skipped a beat. It was a photo of Emma and Ryan at a fancy restaurant the night before, clearly enjoying themselves. A mocking caption read, "Don't worry, Jake. She's in good hands now." I clenched my jaw. This wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was humiliation. Someone, likely Ryan, was taunting me, and I wasn't about to let it slide. The phone buzzed again, this time with a video. My stomach churned as I pressed play. It was Emma, sitting in what looked like a private lounge, laughing as she said, "Jake thinks he's so smart. Let him dig through my accounts all he wants. I'll make sure he walks away with nothing." That was the final straw. I walked straight into my boss's office. If Harold wanted to play dirty by involving my job, I wasn't going to wait around for the fallout. "Mr. Davis," I said, shutting the door firmly behind me. "Do you have a minute?" He looked up, surprised. "Jake, of course. What's on your mind?" I hesitated, then plunged ahead. "I need to talk to you about Harold Sinclair. I know he's been in touch with HR, likely feeding them misinformation about my personal life. Before this gets any further, I want to set the record straight." His brow furrowed, and he leaned back in his chair. "Go on." I laid it all out, the affair, the manipulation, and the threats Harold had made to ruin me professionally. I even showed him the cease and desist letter. To my surprise, he listened intently, his expression growing darker with each detail. "Jake," he said after a long pause, "thank you for bringing this to me. I had a feeling Harold was overstepping, but I didn't know the extent. Don't worry about HR. I'll handle this personally." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of relief. That night, I took the next step. If Emma wanted to drag me through the mud, I'd make sure she wasn't the only one slinging dirt. I compiled everything, the videos, the texts, the financial discrepancies, even the contract with her father, and sent them anonymously to a trusted journalist I'd known for years. I didn't want to turn this into a tabloid spectacle, but Harold's influence meant I needed someone willing to expose the truth without bias. The journalist, Sarah, called me within an hour. "Jake, this is explosive," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "Are you ready for the fallout? Once this goes public, there's no turning back." I took a deep breath. "Do it. They need to be held accountable." The story broke 2 days later. The headline read, "Corporate Mogul's Dirty Secrets, Infidelity, Financial Manipulation, and Power Plays." It detailed Emma's affair with Ryan, the contract with Harold, and the threats they'd made against me. The evidence I'd provided was damning, and the article quickly went viral. I watched the fallout unfold from the safety of my living room. Emma's name trended on social media within hours, accompanied by scathing comments. Harold released a statement calling the article baseless, but the evidence was too solid for anyone to believe him. The real kicker came when the company Harold co-owned with Ryan announced an internal investigation. Ryan was suspended immediately, and Harold's reputation took a nosedive. That evening, Emma showed up at my door. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. She looked wrecked, her hair disheveled, mascara streaked down her cheeks. For a moment, I felt a pang of pity, but it was quickly replaced by anger. "What do you want, Emma?" I asked, my voice cold. "Jake," she sobbed, stepping closer. "You've ruined me. The article, the videos, how could you? How could I?" I repeated, incredulous. "You cheated on me. Lied to me. Tried to destroy my life. And now you're playing the victim?" "I didn't think you'd actually go this far," she whispered. "That's your problem, Emma," I said. "You never thought I'd fight back. But now? You're just getting what you deserve." She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "Save it. I'm done with you. The divorce papers are on their way, and after this? You're nothing to me." The next morning, I got a call from Sarah. "Jake," she said, her tone cautious, "you need to see this." She sent me a link to a leaked recording of Harold yelling at Emma during a phone call. In it, He berated her for being careless and ruining everything. But the most shocking part came at the end. "I should have listened to your mother," Harold spat. "You were always a liability. Just like your brother." "Brother?" I froze. Emma had never mentioned a sibling. I called Sarah back immediately. "Where did you get this recording?" "It was sent anonymously," she said. "Why?" I didn't answer. My mind was already racing. Who was her brother? Why had he been kept a secret? And what did Harold mean by a liability? The word brother echoed in my head long after I hung up the call with Sarah. I paced my living room, piecing together the puzzle. Emma had always been tight-lipped about her family, but I'd chalked it up to her strained relationship with her mother. She only ever mentioned Harold, her all-powerful father, as if the rest of her family didn't exist. Now, it felt like I was staring at a gaping hole in the story. I couldn't ignore this. Whatever Harold meant in that recording wasn't just an insult, it was a lead. If Emma had a brother, where was he, and why had she never told me? That evening, I called Sarah again. "I need you to dig into Emma's family," I said. "She's got a brother Harold referenced in that recording, and I need to know who he is." She hesitated. "Jake, this is getting murky." "Are you sure?" "I'm positive," I replied. "Something's off. I can feel it." She agreed to look into it, but I didn't just leave it to her. I spent hours scouring the internet for any mention of Harold Sinclair's children, trying every combination of keywords I could think of. Finally, I stumbled across a local news archive from almost 20 years ago. It was a story about a teenager named Alex Sinclair, Harold's son. The headline read, "Tragic accident claims teen's life, Sinclair family in mourning." But as I read the article, something didn't add up. Alex hadn't died in a car crash or from an illness. The story was vague, only stating that he had passed away unexpectedly during a family incident. It was enough to make me question everything. The next morning, Sarah called back. Her voice was taut with urgency. "Jake, I found something," she said. "But it's dark." "Tell me," I demanded. "Emma's brother, Alex," she began. "He didn't die in an accident. He was institutionalized after a violent altercation with Harold. The family covered it up, claiming he'd passed away to protect Harold's reputation." I froze. "Why was he institutionalized?" "He attacked Harold," she explained. "The records are sealed, but from what I gathered, Alex accused Harold of something serious. When no one believed him, he snapped. Harold pulled strings to have him declared mentally unstable." The room seemed to tilt around me. This wasn't just a dysfunctional family. This was something far worse. Determined to find out more, I tracked down the facility where Alex had been institutionalized. After several dead ends, I managed to get through to someone willing to talk, a former nurse who had worked there years ago. "Alex Sinclair," she said, her voice wary. "Why are you asking about him?" "I'm trying to piece together the truth about his family," I said. "Anything you can tell me would help." She hesitated before replying. "He wasn't crazy, if that's what you're wondering. He was angry, hurt, but not insane. He talked a lot about his father, said Harold wasn't the man people thought he was." "What did he say?" I pressed. "Nothing specific," she admitted. "Just that Harold had done things, awful things, and that Alex was determined to expose him. But every time he tried, Harold would find a way to silence him." The conversation left me shaken. I had to find Alex. If he was still alive, he might hold the key to unraveling the Sinclair family's lies. That night, I confronted Emma. I showed up at her new apartment unannounced. She opened the door in a silk robe, her face hardening when she saw me. "What do you want, Jake?" she snapped. "I want the truth," I said, stepping inside before she could stop me. She folded her arms. About what? Alex, I said. Her expression faltered for a split second before she recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Emma, I growled. I know about your brother. I know he's not dead. Why have you been hiding him? She tried to laugh it off, but it came out hollow. You've really lost it, haven't you? Cut the act, I said, pulling out my phone and playing the recording of Harold's outburst. He called Alex a liability. Why? Emma's face drained of color. Where did you get that? It doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that I know your father destroyed Alex's life, and you helped cover it up. Now, you're going to tell me everything. For the first time, Emma looked genuinely scared. She sat down, her hands trembling. Alex was different, she began, her voice barely a whisper. He never played by my father's rules. He hated the way Harold controlled everything, especially Mom and me. When Alex started asking questions about the business, about where the money came from, things got bad. How bad? I pressed. Harold framed him, she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. Made it look like Alex was dangerous. Violent. He wanted him out of the way. Why didn't you do anything? I demanded. What could I do? She shot back, her voice rising. I was just a kid, Jake. Harold would have done the same to me if I'd tried to help Alex. So I stayed quiet. I survived. Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. Where is he now? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know. After he was released, he disappeared. Harold made sure he had nowhere to go. The revelation left me reeling. Harold wasn't just a manipulative tyrant, he was a man who would destroy his own son to protect his empire. And Emma, for all her faults, was another victim of his control. But I wasn't done. If Alex was out there, I was going to find him. The search for Alex became an obsession. Every lead felt like a thread unraveling the Sinclair family's sinister tapestry. While Harold scrambled to contain the fallout from the exposé and Emma lay low, I turned my focus entirely to tracking down the missing piece of this puzzle. Sarah, ever resourceful, came through again. I found a trail, she told me over the phone. Alex was released from the institution 5 years ago. He legally changed his name and moved to a small town in Oregon. Do you have an address? I asked, my heart pounding. She hesitated. Jake, if you find him, this could open up a whole new mess. Are you ready for that? I don't care about the mess, I said firmly. I just need the truth. A day later, I was on a plane to Oregon. Armed with Sarah's information and my own relentless determination, I rented a car and drove to a modest house on the outskirts of a quiet town. The place looked worn but lived in, with a well-kept garden and a truck parked in the driveway. I knocked on the door, my palms damp with nerves. After a few moments, it opened, and I came face to face with a man who could only be Alex Sinclair. He looked nothing like Harold, taller, leaner, with sharp features and piercing eyes that carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much. His expression shifted from suspicion to guarded curiosity as he studied me. Who are you? He asked, his voice rough but steady. My name is Jake, I said. I was married to your sister, Emma. His eyes darkened, and he started to close the door, but I blocked it with my foot. Wait, I pleaded. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to talk. Alex let me in reluctantly, and we sat in his small living room. The walls were bare except for a few photographs, none of which included Emma or Harold. You've got 5 minutes, he said curtly. I didn't waste time. I told him everything, the affair, Harold's threats, the article, and the recording that mentioned him. His expression didn't change, but his fists clenched when I played the audio. "That bastard," he muttered. "Why did Harold go after you?" I asked. "What were you trying to expose?" Alex hesitated, then leaned back with a bitter laugh. "You really want to know? Fine. Harold's empire isn't built on legitimate business. It's built on blackmail, bribes, and backroom deals. He's got dirt on everyone who matters, from politicians to CEOs. I found proof when I was 17, bank statements, recordings, contracts. I wanted to go public, but Harold found out. He planted evidence that I was violent, dangerous. Had me locked away before I could do anything." His words sent a chill down my spine. "Do you still have the proof?" I asked. Alex shook his head. Harold destroyed everything. Or so he thought. But I held on to one thing. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a flash drive. "This has copies of the contracts Harold used to blackmail his biggest targets. It's not enough to take him down completely, but it'll put a dent in his armor." I stared at the drive, my mind racing. This could be the leverage I needed to end Harold's reign for good. That night, back at my hotel, I reviewed the files. They were damning: signed agreements, hidden accounts, and detailed records of Harold's dealings with some of the country's most powerful people. But one name stood out: Ryan Carver. Emma's lover had been more than just a pawn in Harold's schemes. He was a willing accomplice, using his position to broker shady deals on Harold's behalf. The realization made my blood boil. Emma hadn't just cheated with Ryan, she'd aligned herself with someone complicit in her father's corruption. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I sent the files to Sarah. "Get this out there," I told her. "But leave Ryan's name for last. I want to handle him personally." She agreed, and by midday, the internet was ablaze with headlines about Harold's criminal dealings. The contract sent shockwaves through the business world, with several high-profile figures scrambling to issue statements. Harold's reputation was in tatters, and he'd never recover. But my work wasn't done. I returned home and waited for the right moment. It came a few days later when I learned that Ryan was attending a fundraiser at an exclusive club downtown. I showed up uninvited, wearing my best suit, and slipped past the security with ease. Inside, the room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Ryan stood near the bar, his smug grin making my stomach churn. I walked straight up to him and tapped him on the shoulder. He turned, surprised. "Jake. Didn't expect to see you here." "Let's talk," I said, keeping my tone even. Ryan smirked. "About what?" "Emma? I'd say she's made her choice." I grabbed his arm, hard enough to wipe the smirk off his face. "Not here. Outside." Once we were alone in the alley, I let the mask drop. "I know everything," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Your deals with Harold. Your involvement in his schemes. It's all coming out." Ryan paled but tried to play it cool. "You're bluffing." I stepped closer, towering over him. "Am I? You've seen the news. How long do you think it'll take before your name gets dragged into it?" "What do you want?" he asked, his bravado crumbling. "Stay away from Emma," I said. "Stay away from me. If I see you again, I won't stop at ruining your career. Got it?" He nodded, his fear palpable. When I got home, there was a message on my voicemail. It was Emma, her voice trembling. "Jake, I saw the news," she said. "We need to talk." I deleted the message without listening to the rest. Emma had made her bed, and now she could lie in it. The phone call from Emma had been a ghost of its former self. Gone were the pleading cries for understanding, the promises of change, and the hollow apologies I had grown all too accustomed to hearing. Now, it was just a lifeline she desperately tried to cast out, hoping I would reach for it. But I'd seen her true colors too many times. For the first time in years, I felt no urge to chase her. The thrill of confronting Harold, the satisfaction of watching Ryan's smug grin dissolve, it all came together, and now, I had no more patience for the lies Emma had spun for so long. That night, I went to the club where Emma was hosting a private dinner with a few of her remaining friends, people who still wanted a piece of the Sinclair empire, even after the scandal had begun to take hold. I stepped into the dimly lit room, the sharp scent of expensive cologne and perfume filling the air. I didn't want to make a scene, but I wasn't here to play games anymore. When she saw me, her face froze. She was wearing that same tight-lipped smile she always wore when she tried to fake her way through a confrontation. "Jake, she began, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not here to listen to your excuses, Emma. I'm here to finish what I started." Her eyes flickered with anger, but she masked it quickly. "What is it that you want from me? After everything I've done for you, you're still treating me like this?" The words stung, but not the way they used to. In fact, I felt a strange sense of peace. The time for giving her chances was over. "I want nothing from you," I said coldly. "I want you to realize that you don't get to play the victim here. You never did." Her eyes narrowed as if she was trying to read me, to understand what I was doing. But I was no longer her prey. I was done chasing her for answers. "You think you've won?" she spat, her voice a sharp edge. "Do you honestly think any of this changes anything? You can't win against my father. He owns everything, and he'll destroy you, Jake. Just like he destroyed Alex." I stayed silent, looking at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Harold might have control over a lot of things, Emma, but he doesn't control me. You don't control me anymore." Her face twisted with a mix of frustration and something darker. She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. "You think you're some kind of hero now? You think you've exposed us all? You haven't. You've only made things worse for yourself. For your future." "Funny," I said, cutting her off once more. "I thought that was the point." Her eyes flared with fury. "You think I care? After everything I've done for you, after everything we've been through, this is how you repay me? I never asked for this, Emma. I never asked for any of it," I replied. "But now? I've got everything I need to move forward. To get the hell out of your father's mess. And you? You can stay in it. You and your miserable, corrupt world." Emma's face crumpled into a bitter sneer, but she didn't argue. The truth of what I said hung in the air like a cold fog. Her game was over. I turned and walked away from her without a second glance. The last of my feelings for her had burned away in that moment. There was nothing left. Outside, the night was quiet. The city lights cast long shadows, but I wasn't afraid of what lay ahead. The Sinclair dynasty was crumbling. The secrets, the lies, it was all coming to an end. I didn't need Emma to complete my story. I didn't need Harold's approval or anyone else's. The evidence was out. The damage was done. And now I had a choice. The truth about the Sinclair family had been exposed to the world, but there was no way I was going to let their corruption taint me anymore. I was leaving. I walked away from everything I once thought I needed, from Emma, from her father's power, from a life I could never truly claim as my own. But it wasn't just about walking away, it was about reclaiming my own life. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Epilogue. Months passed. Emma and Harold tried everything to salvage their empire, but the walls had crumbled around them. The truth, once exposed, was a force they couldn't contain. The Sinclair name had lost its power, and the people who had once feared them were now fighting for their own survival. As for me, I found peace. I started fresh, new city, new life. The betrayal had scarred me, but it had also shown me that there was strength in letting go. I no longer had to live in the shadow of someone else's lies. I could finally breathe. I never saw Emma again. I didn't need to. The last time I spoke to her, she had been defeated, not by me, but by her own choices. And I learned something crucial from the experience. Sometimes, the hardest thing is not fighting for someone or something, but walking away from it. The end.